Hey there, welcome to my channel. So this is N00rvana Crochet Ruffle crop top. Yes, this is where I borrowed my inspiration from, and I came up with something that looks like this. I didn't want it to look so exactly like hers because that would not be fair for her creation. So I made mine to look like this, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. So this is how it looks like at the back. So now I'm gonna be using Robin 100% acrylic yarn, and I'm gonna be using color gray, and those are two strands that I'm gonna be using. It's 500 grams. Then I'm gonna be using 4.5mm hook for the ruffles, 3.5mm hook for the body of the top, and then you're gonna need a tape measure, a dunny needle. So now first of all I'm gonna be making this rectangle. Yes, so first we're going to be making this rectangle, and to measure, this is around, it's 8 inches long, and this is supposed to be 17 inches wide, but measure 16, but 17 is pretty okay. So now first, this is what we're going to be doing, or this is what we're going to be making first. And this can stretch to up to around 35 or 36 inches long. So first I'm gonna make a slip knot. So I'm using my 3.5mm hook and then 2 strands of 100% acrylic yarn to make a chain of 41. So I made a chain of 41, which was around 9 inches, but so you're gonna measure yourself like how long you want your top to be and make that long enough chain. This is 41. When you measure, it is 9 inches, but when you slip stitch, it's gonna decrease by 1 whole inch. So if you want your top to be 10 inches long, you're going to make a chain that is 11 inches long, because it will still shrink to 10 inches long. So after that, go into the second chain from the hook with a slip stitch, and now I'm going to slip stitch all the way up to the end of the chain. So coming to the end of the chain, I'm going to place my second last slip stitch, and after that I'm going to place my last slip stitch. Make sure you don't slip stitch too tight because you're going to be working the slip stitches. So now for row 2, you're going to make a chain of 1 and then turn your work. So slip stitch into that first stitch, not the chain but the stitch. So slip stitch back loop only into that first stitch, and now we are going to slip stitch back loop only up to the end of row 2. So after that we shall be repeating row 2 until we come up with, if you're size 35 or 34, you're gonna slip stitch until you have around 16 or 17 inches, and if you have a bigger bust, please, you're going to make a rectangle that measures around half of your bust inches, I should say. So for row 3, chain 1 turn, slip stitch back loop only, and just continue to do that up to the end of the, continue to do that until you come up with half your bust, and that's in inches, I mean. So as I said, we began with 9 and then it shrink to 8. Do not forget that. So now this is what you have, and as I've been telling you, I'm a size 34. My bust is size 34. So now, so you're gonna do the same thing. Mine is 34. So I make a chain of, my rectangle measures up to 17 inches, so that's half of mine. Remember, it can decrease and increase times 2 because of the slip stitches. So when you come up with that, you're going to identify your wrong side and make sure it's on top. Then grab your darning needle. Your wrong side of the top should be on top, because when you're stitching your work together, the wrong side of your top should always be on top and the right side should always be inside. So I'm going to stitch my work together. Just make sure that the stitches correspond and just stitch it together however you like, or it could be with single crochets if you want, or you could simply use this darning needle method. This is how it looks like, the wrong side of our top. So now when you turn it around, now this is the right side of the top, which I really love. So now this is what we have, and I want this line to be on the side, so this is it to have to be. So the next thing, you can measure, this is 8 and something, yeah, and now down it should be 8 inches. Of course it stretches, remember, on both sides, top and sides. The next thing that you're going to be doing is make a slip stitch, slip knot, and make a chain of 7. And after making a chain of 7, you're going to go into the second chain from the hook with a slip stitch and slip stitch up to the end of the chain. So you're going to be having 6 slip stitches. So now this you're making, these are like the arms, so it's gonna go around the arms. So for it to chain 1 turn, slip stitch in the back loop only. So now you're going to measure around your upper arm. So mine is around 9 inches long, like around the upper arm, which is, mine is 9 inches, so I'm gonna make half of that. So measure yours and make this as long, half of the inches you come up with when you measure. So now this is 5, but as I said, I'm 9 around my arm, like this. I'm 9 inches. So now if I make 5 is enough to cover up for my 9 inches around my upper arm, as you can see. So measure yours too and make the suitable number of rows. So when you're done, just cut your yarn and pull up the loop after making a chain of 1, of course. Then grab your darning needle, insert it into the insert your yarn into the darning needle, and then identify your wrong side on these ones too. Then stitch your work together. So now you're going to be needing 2 of these arms, I should say. Yep, you're going to be needing 2 of these. So this is what you have. It's gonna be going on there, and then I'm gonna make another one like that. So after coming up with 2 of those, make sure that your wrong side is on the inside. Now this is really important. And also come onto this side, make sure the wrong side is on the inside. After that, insert your yarn into the darning needle and just stitch this, only this part together, Once you're done with that, you're going to do the same thing onto this side. We are done doing that. Now you're going to identify your back side, which part you want to be at the back, and after that go into the middle part of that back and then attach your yarn. Now I'm using a 4.5mm hook, and after that, first like make your yarn tight onto the top. After that, slip stitch in the same stitch, half double crochet into the same stitch now, and then slip stitch into the same stitch. Now we are placing 3 stitches into one stitch, but making sure that we correspond between slip stitch, half double crochet and slip stitch. So the next, into the ridge, you're going to be inserting a half double crochet followed by a slip stitch. Make sure you don't do this too tight because they'll give you a hard time inserting. And the next thing, insert a half double crochet into the same stitch, go into the next stitch which is in the middle of the ridge, slip stitch, place a half double crochet in the same stitch, place a slip stitch into the same stitch, go into the ridge, half double crochet. So now I think now you know the pattern. Into the ridge we are placing half double crochet, slip stitch, half double crochet, and in the middle of the ridge you're going to be placing slip stitch, half double crochet and slip stitch. So continue placing 3 stitches into the same stitch all around. I just wanted to show you around this part. So nothing changes, just continue placing this kind of stitch into each and every stitch. I should say continue placing 3 stitches into each and every stitch. Only that, make sure you correspond, slip stitch and half double crochets. So this is how we connect it to the arm. Just continue with the pattern all around. So for this stitch at the end, this is the only space remaining, so we are going to be inserting 2 stitches simply because we need to end on a half double crochet. It's so important to end on a half double crochet. Now go into the next stitch and make a slip stitch. After making a slip stitch, chain 1, turn your work, please turn your work, and after turning your work we are just going to continue working into these stitches. And now it's going to be more simpler because first you have to start off with a slip stitch and then mark it off so that you don't get lost along the way. And after marking it off, you're going to continue now. Place a half double crochet on top of half double crochet, and now there's a slip stitch over there. You're going to place a slip stitch. There is a half double crochet over there, place a half double crochet. There is a slip stitch there, place a slip stitch. So now this is what you're going to do all around up to the end of the round. Just place a slip stitch on top of a slip stitch and half double crochet on top of a half double crochet. So you're gonna do this for 4 more rows. So this is my 4th row, but I wanted to just show you how to connect it. So nothing changes. Repeat row 2, which is crochet all around, slip stitch, turn, sorry, chain 1, turn. So this is my 4th row. You can sum ending on a half double crochet. Now take off your stitch marker and slip stitch, chain 1, and now I'm gonna cut off my yarn. So now you're gonna be repeating this until you have 4 rows. For my case, this is my 4th row, so nothing changes. The next thing that I'm gonna do, I want the ruffles on the front side of my top to be a little more bulky than the ruffles at the back of my top. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify my front half. Like, I just grab your stitch marker and then identify your front part. This is what's going to be my front part. And now just identify like half of it, only the front part, from the arms to the other side. Go into that stitch marker, sorry, go into that slip stitch and insert your stitch marker. I'm going to repeat the same thing onto this side. Identify the slip stitch and insert your stitch marker. And after that, I'm going to be adding 2 more rows of ruffles, or just 2 more rows of this kind of stitch. No increasing, no decrease. It's just as simple as that. So attach your yarn, and after attaching your yarn, begin to crochet, slip stitch into the slip stitch. Do not forget to attach your stitch marker. You don't need to forget about that. And after that, half double crochet on top of half double crochet. You see, no increase, no decrease. So again, slip stitch into that next slip stitch. So I'm gonna be repeating this up to the point where I placed my stitch marker, and after that I will chain 1, turn my work, and continue to repeat the same thing up to this side where I placed the stitch marker, and by that our 2 rows will be done. So this is what I have. I'm on my 2nd row. I'm finishing off my 2nd row actually, but I'm gonna show you, just in case this was your 1st row, this is what you would be doing. There is a half double crochet there, so insert your half double crochet, and now take it off, slip stitch. Just in case this was your 1st row, this is what you would be doing. So now row 1 is over, chain 1, turn your work. For row 2, this is what you have to do. Slip stitch into that first one, and then grab your stitch marker and mark it off. And now continue to insert half double crochet on top of half double crochet and slip stitch on top of slip stitch up to the end of the row. And when you're done, do not forget I added on only 2 more rows. I just wanted to show you. And when you're done, make a chain of 1 and then cut your yarn and pull up the loop. So if there's anything that's confusing you, please do not hesitate to mention it in the comment section down below. I'll be so glad to get back to you. So what's remaining is for us to weave in the ends, and I'm gonna show you pretty quick how to do that, but you can also check out my other videos. They always go into detail on how to weave in the ends. So continue to do this. Tie your work, and now cut off the excess yarn. So I'm gonna do this for each and every excess yarn on my top. Weave it in and then cut off the ends. But the part with more rows of ruffles is the front part, and the part with less rows of ruffles is the back part. So thank you for watching and happy crocheting.